You're looking live at Capitol Hill, where the biggest names in tech are still on the hot seat. They've been there all afternoon. The CEOs of Apple, Google, Facebook, and Amazon getting grilled during an antitrust hearing, but earlier Republicans went after the executives over allegations of conservatives being censored on social media.
I'll just cut to the chase. Big tech's out to get conservatives. That's not a suspicion. That's not a hunch. That's a fact. If I had a nickel for every time I heard it was just a glitch, I wouldn't be as wealthy as our witnesses, but I'd be doing all right.
Conservatives are consumers too. And the way the net was put together in the eyes of Congress is that everybody should be able to speak their mind.
And can you today assure Americans you will not tailor your features in any way to help, specifically help one candidate over other? And this, what I'm concerned about is you helping Joe Biden over President Trump.
We won't do any work, to politically tilt anything one way or the other. It's against our core values.
All right, the CEOs denied any bias. So another day, another hearing. Let me go to you, Jesse. I don't know if you got a chance to see much of that today, but anytime we have hearings on Capitol Hill about tech, you just kind of want to cringe through the questions that are being asked, because many times you realize that the members, they have an idea of what they're talking about, but they're not well versed in the technology.
They don't know the difference between Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, nothing. They're worse than I am. I do have to give credit where credit is due, Dana, because the Democrats have done something very smart, and it really pains me to say that. They've launched this campaign in Silicon Valley for these tech giants to root out hate speech and misinformation. But the Democrats in D.C. agree with the Democrats in Silicon Valley that hate speech and misinformation only comes from conservatives. Because hate speech is basically anything that offends a Democrat, and misinformation is anything a Democrat disagrees with. So these PC police types and the fact checkers of the mainstream media get on these platforms and they build these speech walls against conservative speech, and these walls keep closing in. Yet the Democrats, they can talk about misinformation all day long, like the Russia hoax, and they can pay no price. They can slander conservatives all day long, call them white supremacists, rapists. They can plan riots on social media. They don't pay a price. So it's unfair, and the Democrats say, you better do this, censor conservatives to these tech giants, or we'll break up your monopolies. For them with money. They pay everybody off, and they have all their lobbyists take everybody on quail hunts and to fancy dinners, because all they know is that once a year they come up, bend over, get spanked, and then they walk back to their desks and make $1 billion a day, and nothing changes.
All right. So one of those people that is under the gun from Democrats is Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook. And Juan, take a listen to what he said, very consistent with what he told us a month or so ago when we did an interview with him about this issue of the Democrats wanting Facebook to take down all sorts of things, including basically Trump's Twitter feed or Facebook feed. Take a listen.
Our goal is to offer a platform for all ideas. We've distinguished ourselves as one of the companies that defends free expression the most. We do not want to become the arbiters of truth. I think that would be a bad position for us to be in, and not what we should be doing.
Why can't the Democrats seem to think that that's okay, Juan, to say that you want to be neutral on a platform?
I think it's all right with everybody. I think the real issue, going back to what Jesse was saying, has to do with, propaganda, lies, hate speech, that kind of thing. But, I think today, just to pick up again on what Jesse was saying, I saw Sensenbrenner asking Zuckerberg about Twitter, like he thought Zuckerberg ran Twitter. He doesn't even know the difference, apparently. So I get the idea that really watching this, it looked like Republicans, you know how you guys said the Democrats weren't allowing Barr to speak yesterday? So today it's Republicans not allowing any of these tech executives to speak, and basically working the rep, saying, hey, we don't like it when you limit Don Jr. when he's putting stuff out there, or we don't like it at all.
Yeah.
So, okay, I mean, I guess that's their message. But to me, this was supposed to be an antitrust hearing. And, you know, to the point of who's got more political leverage, I think right now President Trump and his administration have done nothing in terms of promoting competition on the high-tech sector. There's more of a threat to those high-tech bosses from the prospect. I'll just finish up. It's more of a threat, I think, from a Joe Biden and a Democratic Congress in terms of actually putting in place legislation and passing it that would rein in and these monopolies and allow real competition, allow the little guy to get in the game. So if that's the issue, then I think the political leverage is more on the right.
But Greg, thinking about this, you know, the free market system, and here you have these 4 tech CEOs, American companies, employing lots of Americans and also having a global presence. And you have these guys saying that big government would be better at making decisions for these companies than the free market.
Yeah, when you look at these hearings in general, it's why I didn't even watch this hearing today, because I was hearinged out. It took all of my self-control not to drive to D.C. and TP the Capitol. Whenever you take any issue, whether it's justice or it's the internet, hearings are an intellect removal machine. It's like it replaces brains with outrage theater, and I don't think you never get to the bottom of anything. You just go back to the top. We are participating in an experiment with social media. It affects all of our lives. It's only going to get bigger and ubiquitous and more powerful. So the question for conservatives are, do you want it to become the 4th horseman of the left? You know, the left won when it comes to culture. They have the entertainment industry, they have media, they have academia. So we have this 4th thing. It's social media. It's the social media platform. Do you want to just hand it over without a fight? Because once you hand it over, it never comes back. And we know that with academia. Academia is purely left. And you know the media will never be conservative. None of these things will change. And by the way, to Jesse's point, I want to back it up. It's not about hate speech. It's about the accusation of hate speech, which is used to silence you and damage your career. And this is happening everywhere, not just social media.
Yeah. Katie, one thing I thought that, I didn't hear too much about it today, but the Trump administration has gone to bat for these American companies, especially overseas, when you have governments like in the EU, for example, that want to heavily tax or regulate or change these companies. They've gone to bat for them. Would a Biden administration do the same?
I think it depends. There's not a lot in Washington, D.C. that both sides of the political aisle agree on, and they still disagree. But the one thing they do agree on is that big tech, there are problems on both sides. Jim Jordan today was very adamant about pointing out issues of bias that have been alleged against these big tech companies and the double standard that does exist when it comes to free speech on their platforms. And I have to say, Mark Zuckerberg says we're not going to regulate speech or be the arbiters of truth, but they actually they cop out because they hire, quote, fact checkers from like the Associated Press or the New York Times that are left-leaning publications to do the fact checking for them. And then those posts are then flagged and the pages that they're on are flagged and they're limited in terms of their view. So this idea that they don't actually regulate what goes on their platforms isn't necessarily true, but I also don't know if big government is the way to fix this, especially considering how today went. And they always think that they're better than everyone, that they're smarter than their witnesses. Today was a show of that is not necessarily true.
Not true. All right.